Alright, so the next step of our project concept proposal is creating a communication plan. What is a communication plan, you might ask? Well, it is basically a roadmap or a way of getting your message across to whoever it is you need to get your message across to. It could be the client, could be stakeholders, could be other people that need to know information about the project. So this next slide has a video where he does go into detail about creating a communication plan, and we'll talk more about it a little bit later. But little extra credit here is if you can figure out what accent this guy has, let me know. It's different. Okay, so why do you need to communicate? In other words, what do you want to be different because you communicated? What needs to change? What information needs to be shared? And also, who do you need to communicate with? Make a list of your potential audiences. So your audience could be, one audience could be, like we said, the stakeholders, the people who are investing in your project. The client, the one who has who's paying for it, whose company wants this video game that you're producing. Could be internal, could be people within your organization, the developers, the marketers. So there are different people that you need to communicate with. We're calling those groups of people audiences. What do they think about the issue or the topic now? How do you find out? How do you gauge what information still needs to be shared based on what they don't know yet and need to know? Define it. How do you want your audience to know, or excuse me, what do you want them to know, think, or do as a result of the communication? What does that communication drive? How do they move forward with what they need to do based on the communication? So what are the key messages for each audience? Some audiences may have similar messages, some may have different ones. But it says there, remember the purpose of the communication. When do you need to deliver those messages? How often do you need to deliver them? And how will you deliver them? Will it be face-to-face? Will it be email, text message, maybe some sort of video conferencing? So what's going to be the best way to deliver the message that you need to deliver? So we'll talk about these 5 questions in just a moment. What I want to do is move ahead and talk about what the assignment is for this communication plan. So first thing you're going to do is create a communication plan template similar to the one you saw in the video. Use the table function in Google Docs, which we'll do in a second. So the next slide is an example of that. So this is a communication plan that I found that we're going to use as a template. So for this one, there are 5 different audiences for this communication plan. Each audience has specific messages that they need to know based on who they are. These messages are delivered in different ways. Sometimes a face-to-face meeting is necessary. Sometimes just a weekly written report will suffice. In this case, a bulletin board posted announcements is more than enough to get the message across to these non-care team members. The frequency depends again on the audience. For the patient family board advisory board, quarterly meetings. Sometimes it needs to be weekly. And in this case, at the completion of major milestones. So that's how often they're going to do it. Here's when it's going to happen: second Tuesday of each quarter. Submitted by noon on Fridays, at the start of shift on Thursdays. So there's specific timing as to when this communication will go out. Who is responsible for providing this communication? Here we have team leaders, and here we have team scribes. Scribe meaning the person who kind of takes notes, who's documenting what's going on. And then finally, feedback mechanisms. So how are you able to obtain feedback from these different audiences? And that's what goes in here. So that's the first part of it, is creating a communication plan using a table function in Google Docs. And if you've never done that before, basically what you do here is insert table, depending on how many across you want to go, how many down you want to go, and there it is. So when you're creating that table, definitely do include, I need this header. So I need to know what each column represents. And you will use these 7: audience, messages, media or vehicle, excuse me, frequency, timing, responsibility, and then feedback mechanism. Excuse me again. Okay, this template has 5 different audiences. I'm only requiring 3. You need a minimum of 3 audiences with whom to communicate. So again, that could be client, stakeholder, it could be the development team. So whatever 3 audiences that you feel are important to communicate with for this project, use those 3. Next, you're going to answer the 5 bullet points on slide 65, addressing just one of your audiences. So we'll go back. These are the questions you're going to answer. Who will deliver the message, and how will you prepare them? What resources are required for delivering the message? How will you enable feedback, and how will you know that your audience has received the communication? How will you know if they have understood, acted, or changed as a result of communication? And finally, how will you follow up if additional communication is required? So for these 5 bullet points, there's really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 questions here that you're going to answer. You're going to answer those based on just one of the audiences. So you're going to answer all of these based on the communication to your stakeholders or the communication to your development team, however that may be. So again, create the communication plan with 3 audiences, these 7 headers in your chart. Answer the 5 bullet points on slide 65, addressing just one of your audiences. So these 5 questions, or 5 bullet points, 7 questions really, regarding just one of these audiences. And let me know which audience you chose. And then, of course, you're going to submit it all on one Google Doc, the communication plan template, and the answers to the 5 bullet points on slide 65, due by midnight Thursday. So it's pretty straightforward. You're obviously going to be making stuff up here because you don't have stakeholders, you don't have an advisory board, you don't have a development team. So so a little bit of creative liberties can be made here as you're developing this. The important part is just understanding that there are different types of communication for different audiences, different ways of presenting the communication, different frequencies, different responsibilities, or it's responsible. Responsibility is done by different people potentially, and feedback, the way the feedback is received could be different. So 3 audiences, 7 columns, and then also answering these 5 bullet points. Again, any questions? Let me know. Work that you've been turning in has been great. No issues so far for the most part. So keep it up, and we will talk to you soon.